Well, church, what I wanted to preach on this morning got changed this morning. And so this sermon's coming fresh, right off the presses. This morning I just really want to share my heart with you, if that's okay. And, I realize that the church has been going through a lot of rough waters and changes lately. And things have been happening. I mean, we've endured losses. We've gone through people's, people feeling hurt, difficult choices, decisions, votes that have to be made. There's been gossip, there's been lies, there's been slander, there's been family struggles and hardships. There's been those that feel forgotten, those who feel alone. There's those who've suffered loss, death, sickness. And our church, we've lost some pillars in death lately, But we've also had some victories. We've had new members. We've had those come to Christ. We've had the opportunity to do prayer walks in our community, to do outreaches for the glory of God. So we've, I guess the best way to call it is we've kind of been on a roller coaster of emotions and feelings, of back and forth. And what I want to cover this morning is the problem. It's kind of taken a toll on us as a church overall. And it's almost as if the wind kind of is taken from our sail, and some of us have felt tired, some felt overwhelmed, beaten down. And honestly, I believe that some folks think it's because one of the issues that has happened, or something else, or that's happened in the church, past, present, where it's going. But the rut that we're in is not because of any of that. I want you to understand something and why it is that we're here. The reason we're here in a rut, the reason you may feel in a slump, the reason maybe you feel stuck in a routine is simply because we've taken our eyes and our heart off the Lord. That's it. Has nothing to do with one of the issues. Has nothing to do with your personal feelings. Has nothing to do with the way that you feel that somebody has done something, or a decision or vote that's been made. The issue is your eyes and your heart are not on the Lord. And that's why we get stuck. When we place them on something that never deserved our worship or our attention, it steals and it quenches the Spirit of the Lord in this place. And the moment that He does not have our full attention, our full worship, our full heart, that is the moment that the church ceases to do what the church is supposed to do. The joy of the Lord in our salvation is found only in the Lord. And it never needs to be anything else that we place our hope and our trust and our faith in. No one deserves that. Only Christ. We cannot keep our joy on vacation either. It's time that we come back home and we get to work, church. So I'm going to take my jacket off because it's going to get hot. So when we're talking about this, we're going to be in 1 Samuel 17. I want to remind you, some of you already know this story and where we're going, but that is where we're heading. We can feel sorry for ourselves. We can feel sorry for our agendas. We can feel sorry for our traditions, that they're slipping away and going far away. We can even feel sorry for our own desires. But we can do that later because, let's be honest, in light of eternity, does it even matter? No. Our agendas don't matter. Our plans don't matter. Our desires don't matter. In light of eternity, none of it does, because God is not concerned with how much money we make. He is not concerned with how successful we are. He is not concerned how much stuff we accumulate in our sheds and our homes. And I want to remind you of a story that most of us already know from 1 Samuel 17. It's the story of a shepherd boy who became the most powerful force for God because he picked up a few stones. This is the story of David and Goliath. As you know, the Philistine army was on one side of the Valley Elah. The Israelites stood on the other. Israel represents God. The Philistines represent the devil. And in this story, our church is right there. That's why we need to pay attention. Number one, if you're taking notes, we showed up for a fight, but the devil knows our weakness. We showed up for a fight, but the devil knows our weakness. Start in verse 4. Then a champion named Goliath from Gath came out from the Philistine camp. He was 9 feet 9 inches tall and wore a bronze helmet and a bronze scale armor that weighed 125 pounds. There was a bronze armor on his shins and a bronze sword that was slung between his shoulders. His spear shaft was like a weaver's beam, and the iron point of the spear weighed approximately 15 pounds. In addition, a shield bearer was walking in front of him. So you have to imagine this scene as it's unfolding in front of these people. The Philistines sent out their greatest warrior, a giant named Goliath. Giant was 9 feet 9 inches tall. Big man, okay? His armor weighed approximately 125 pounds. The spear that he carried weighed approximately 15 pounds. And a sword was on his back, and a man was carrying his shield in front of him. That dude was intimidating. That's a big guy, right? So when we're talking about this, let's just be honest, Israel has a problem. Can you imagine going up against a foe like Goliath? Can you imagine? You're on one side, Goliath's on the other. Can you imagine the pressure that those people felt? Can you imagine the cost of what would happen if they lost? This is one of the devil's greatest weapons of warfare. The devil knows our soft spots. You see, no one wants to be singled out. No one. No one wants to be the one called to the carpet. No one wants to be the one person that lets everybody else down. No one wants to make the hard calls when it's time to make a choice. We can't even decide where we want to go to eat. We don't want to make our spouses mad. We can't do those things. No one wants to sacrifice themselves or anything, especially if they're the only ones doing it. Or if when they do it, they're not going to get a return for what they're doing. No one wants to fail. As long as we're too afraid to step out, we're going to remain ineffective and useless. As long as we continue to think of ourselves only and only our wants and only our desires and only our circle of interests, then it will never come together. We will never be a united church that makes a difference in our community, in this nation, or in this world. We will never get there. So we better just make the choice. Here's the thing behind it. Fear, pride, jealousy, selfishness will never grow the kingdom of God, ever. Ephesians 4:27 tells us, do not give the devil a foothold. Don't give him an opportunity. Each one of us in this room have our own faults, our own failures. Each one of us have our own footholds that the devil uses. None of us in this room, including myself, bat 1,000. We do not do it. We cannot do it. And what that means is this: we don't give up. Many of us throw in the towel and we give up way before the battle even starts. We throw ourselves away. We say we're no good. We can't do it. But what we need to do instead is be that David that makes the stand. We need to be the ones that count the cost, yes, but we need to be the ones that step out. It means that we continue to fight against our fleshly desires. It means we rise above the calling of mediocre to pursue a life of holiness. It means that we get strength from God. We dust the dirt, the muck, and the mire off of ourselves through the cleansing blood of Jesus Christ. We patch up those dead, burn opportunities and footholds the devil is using. We patch them up. We do this by one way: repenting. We have to repent of sin. We have to return to pursuing Christ. We have to continue on. Some of us right now, you're defeated and broken down in your circumstances and situations because your eyes are on the circumstances and situations. They're not on the Lord God. He overcomes. And the other way that we will overcome as a church and a people and as individuals is if we rise up. We have to pursue. And that means repenting. That means turning from our wicked ways. That means turning the flesh life off. That means taking that old man and killing him. putting him into the fire, being done with that mess. And it means that we pursue Christ with all that we have. Number 2, we showed up for a fight, but the devil doesn't fight fair. We showed up for a fight, but the devil doesn't fight fair. Verse 8, Goliath stood and he shouted to the Israelite battle formations, "Why do you come out and line up in battle formation?" He asked them, "Am I not a Philistine and you are not servants of Saul? Choose one man, have him come down against me. If he wins the fight against me and kills me, we will be your servants. But if I win against him and kill him, then you will be our servants and you will serve us." You see, when the Israelite army showed up, they thought to themselves that this war was going to be like every one they've ever fought. They thought this battle was going to be the exact same that they've done in the past. They got in formation. They lined up. They were ready to go into this valley and fight these people. They were ready for this battle. You see, they believed they were going head to head against the enemy, but that's not what the Philistines had in mind at all. The dilemma came when the Philistines' greatest champion came and he rose up to fight one-on-one, with the victor taking the whole nation. Instead of a full frontal assault of them coming going head to head, they used intimidation and fear, and this is wonderful. We miss this. This is wonderful. They used worry, confusion, complacency, and they kept them at bay. You see, the devil knows this because he doesn't fight fair. He targets the weak, he stabs us in the back, he tortures the innocent, and he takes no prisoners. This is what he does. Why would we expect the devil to ever attack us in a way that we would expect? Why would we ever think that he's going to come straight head on? This sucker flanks us. This guy stabs us in the back. This guy does whatever it takes to cut our legs out from under us. And he does it while you and I are sleeping. Because many of us come to church and we think that this is enough. This is not enough. Coming to church is not enough, church. Coming to a service, I should say, because this isn't even church. The church is us, individuals, fighting a battle together. And I think that sometimes we forget. Sometimes I think I need to walk around a little bit and really get eye to eye with you. If you know, we've forgotten what it is to be the church. We've forgotten what it is to go against a foe that's smarter than us, because we keep losing battles. We keep losing. And the devil, he never plays fair. He never comes at us head on head. He never does that one-on-one thing. He never is just like, "Hey, Maury, today I'm going to tempt you with this." Never. Never does that. Instead, what he does is he comes behind. He uses your own words, your own thoughts, your own weaknesses. He can use your own voice, and it sounds just like you in your head, and you're thinking, "Yeah, that's a great idea, Adam. I should do that." This is the way he fights. What does it tell us? 1 Peter 5:8. It says, "Be serious. Be alert. Your adversary, the devil, is prowling around like a roaring lion looking to devour anyone he can." So what does that mean to us? That means that we don't take our guards down. That means we can't fall asleep when it's our duty to keep our eyes open and watch. It means that we keep pursuing. When unexpected circumstances arise, when things are going well and we become complacent and comfortable, when we get tired and drained and stuck in our routines, or when things don't go the way that we think they should, or they just aren't done the way we want them to be done, when it's not done our way, we must be prepared for his attack, because he uses those opportunities. "Well, I just didn't get my way." How many times have you suffered in your own family because your spouse got their way but you didn't get your way? How many times have your family suffered because your kids got their way but you were left off to a side and you got mad because you had to do what your kid wanted to do? How many times have you thought and felt that way when you go to work and your boss tells you, "Hey, you know what? You're working this weekend. Suck it up." How many times have you thought, "You know what? I really wanted to go see that concert, but you know what's happening on Sundays? Church. I really wanted to sleep in. I deserve this day." We make these choices every day, and the devil uses these choices and twists and turns our thoughts, and we have to be prepared for his attacks. Because number 3, we showed up for a fight, but we lost sight of the goal. We showed up for a fight, but we lost sight of the goal. Some of us in this room still think the fight is about you. Some of you still think that it all centers around you. You've lost sight of the goal because none of this is about you. We get so preoccupied with situations we face and have faced in the past that we lose sight of the focus of why we're even fighting and who we're fighting for. You see, we call this the Goliath problem. The Goliath problem was all that the people of Israel could see. All they could do was focus on this big man staring across at them, cussing their name and their God. That's all they could see. All they could focus on was him. Sure, if they could beat the man, they'd have victory over the Philistines. Battle's going to be won without a lot of bloodshed. Just one person's going to die. But if they lost, they would suffer such a great defeat that they would no longer be a kingdom, a country, or a people. Their families and their children would be divided and torn apart, and all their hard work would be for nothing. So they might as well just give up, right? It's impossible, isn't it? You know, sometimes I come to this church specifically, and sometimes I think to myself, it's impossible. I think to myself, sometimes revival is impossible. Sometimes in my own mind, I think, well, what can I do to fix it? What can I do to manipulate? What can I do to lead and make a decision? You see, you got to think of it like this. The army of Israel were all together and they thought the same thing. You know, they were looking to their king, Saul. Saul, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Saul? Saul, what do we do? They pushed each other. Well, you can't go out there. You're not 9'9". You can't carry 125-pound armor. I mean, that big man up there would cut you in half just with the tip of the spear. The thing weighs 15 pounds. We look at every circumstance and situation that we face in life and we think it's impossible. We think to ourselves, we might as well just give up, throw in the towel because we've lost. Let's figure out a new way. They and we become so fixated on the problem and the negative outcomes that we lose the battle before we even go. They lost the boldness they once had and the victories that God had already won for them. Doubts begin to rise up in their heads and they lose their faith in God. So what do we do? Here's the good news, church. God just needs one person to walk into the valley. He just needs one. He needs one person to walk in that valley in his name and turn the whole tide of the war. Goliath would jeer, disrespect, and slander the people of God, but one day there was a boy named David that showed up to bring his brother some lunch. David, when he arrived, heard the jeers of that giant, heard the wicked slander against the people and against the Lord his God. You know what it did? It made him mad, got angry. David accepted the giant's challenge and he went down in that valley to meet him for a fight. But he didn't go with an army. He didn't go with shield or armor. He had no sword, no spear. That boy went down there with a staff, a sling, and 5 rocks. You tell me. You tell me how bold you'd be. It doesn't stop with just that, because if that's the way it ended, that would be terrible. He goes down there and gets beat, right? This boy goes down there, and this is what he says to Goliath. Verse 45, you come against me with dagger and spear and sword. I come against you in the name of Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel's armies. You have defied him. Today the Lord will hand you over to me. Today I will strike you down, cut your head off, and give your corpse to the Philistine camp, to the birds of the sky and the creatures of the earth. Then all the world will know that Israel has a God, and this whole assembly will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will hand you over to us. Isn't that awesome? Outgunned, outmatched, and certainly all alone, this boy, little David, takes one rock, slings it out there, strikes the giant in the head. He falls, and then something amazing happens. Verse 50, David defeated the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and even though David had no sword, he struck him down and killed him. David ran over, stood over him, grabbed the sword of the Philistine, pulled it from his sheath, and used it to strike him down, cut his head off. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they ran away. The men of Israel and Judah rallied up, shouted their battle cry, and chased the Philistine into the entrance of the valley and to the gates of Ekron. You see, with one rock, church, he changed the whole war. One rock. The Israelites went from a fearful, cowardly people to emboldened and passionate. The Philistines went from these bold, cocky jeerers to a bunch of terrified, scared children, and they ran and tucked tail. We call that, church, revival. When the people of God rise up and their boldness and their passion is restored. Revival's not when we flood down the aisles and a bunch of people get saved. No, that's called salvation. Revival is when the church accepts who they've been called to be. You've been called to be the mouthpiece and the hands and feet of Jesus. You've been called, those who are saved, who his anointed ones, his saints, his army. You've been called up and out of the muck and the mire of your life to be something far greater than you and I could ever be apart from Jesus Christ. You are victors if you have Christ in your heart. You are. You have already won the battle. And too many times we face these wars thinking we're alone. You are not alone. That boy did not walk into that valley thinking, I'm all alone and I don't know how I'm going to do this. He had confidence and trust, and he placed his faith in the Lord, who is the host of that entire army. Think about this. All of them wouldn't go down in that valley. All of them allowed a boy to walk down in that valley. And David, that's okay, I don't need you. I've got the Lord on my side. And today, he will hand you, Philistine, into our hands. It's not by sword or dagger. It's not by spear. It's not by programs, methods. It's not by denomination that God saves. The Lord saves through Jesus Christ. He's already won the battle. All we have to do is accept it. To place our faith and trust in him and walk. Church, we've been asleep far too long, and the people in this community don't even know it. They don't even know who we are. They know we take up space right beside a ball field. They know we're maybe down there if they even look this way. But they need to hear the people of God and our army cry. They need to hear us ready to fight the battles, because we've showed up to a war, and it's up to us to be ready for the devil's attack. We're not facing an army that we're going to be able to see. We're not facing battles that we're going to be seeing coming from a mile off. These things are happening in our own backyards, in our own homes. Do you realize right now you are probably fighting a battle that you think is just between you and your kids? That you think is just between you and the government, or a toll bridge, or on Facebook, or whatever you think your battle is. I'm going to tell you right now, the battle right there in front of you is stealing your attention off the one who deserves your attention. And what it's done is it's entrapped you and put blinders on you so that you can't see the one who overcomes, the one who has given you victory, the one who fights your battles for you and goes before you even before you show up. Church, we need someone in this building to make a stand. We need someone in this church. Is it going to be an adult? Is it going to be a child? Is it going to be a youth group? Is it going to be a men's or women's ministry? Or just a couple of people who want to just get up and say, I'm tired of this same old. I'm tired of the ruts of our church. I'm tired of thinking it has to be done this way. I'm sick and tired of doing nothing. We have a great game. We talk. We talk a lot of noise. Where's the stuff to back it up? Where's the action to follow through and see it to the end? That's called commitment, church. We've got a lot of people who show up with a lot of steam, but when the battle faces us, we lose the steam. All we are is a bunch of hot air. Are you tired of that? Because I'm going to tell you this, it may not be, but just you. But God can use the one who is faithful to place their hope and trust in Him. He can use one that's ready to fight the battle. And it's time we turn the tide of this church. It's time that we become bold and impassioned again. Will you rise? Will you stand? Heads bowed, eyes closed if you want. It doesn't matter. You go through the same routines in your church. Doesn't matter if you're visiting. Doesn't matter if you're a home folk. Doesn't matter. You go through routines in your church. You think that this is enough. It is not enough. So if you're visiting with us, go back home and do something. If you're in this church, then I'm asking you to do something. God has placed a call in your life. And it's more than just being a person who sits in aisles. It's more than just being a person who does, well, I've always done this. I've always done this. He's looking at you to fulfill the calling that He's placed in your heart. Some of you need Jesus. That's the calling in your life right now. He's not going to call you to anything else other than Him. If you have not placed your hope, your faith, and trust in Him, that's where it starts. Some of you today have been doubting for far too long, questioning whether or not you're saved. Stop. Get your answer and come. All you have to do is walk. Take one step of faith. Pursue what Christ is calling you to. It only takes one step. Maybe this morning you have another decision in your heart. Maybe it's a person that you know that Christ has laid on your heart time and time again to share the gospel with. Will you finally get the boldness? Will you finally take a hold of your faith and do something? Will you share Christ with them? As we sing, this is your opportunity. Will you take a step out like David? Will you be the one that Christ used for His glory? As we sing, come.